Alright, this is the next part of my workbench build. I finally got it flipped over and starting to look like a bench, as you can see there. Now let's go back to where I left off. I had put the top on and kind of finished that framing under it. And now it's time to seal off the vacuum chamber there for the downdraft table. And I had some of this old extrusion. Geez, I think I bought it about 40 years ago at a surplus center. They were like 10 feet long pieces for $8 each, and I had used some for another project, but I had the leftover pieces, and they just fit a 1/4-inch plywood perfect. And all those little ribs in there make a nice seal. So it's gonna, I'm gonna use them for the slides for my panel to seal off that section. And then it's over to the Evolution saw, and you can see it's really great having this saw because you can just cut aluminum, steel, whatever I want without going out into the other shop. So it does a good job on everything. So I got my extrusions both cut down, one for each side. You can see it gives a really nice cut there. And now it's time to just add some mounting holes so I can screw them into place inside the bench. So it's just a 1/8-inch thick wall, aluminum basically, so it does drill nice and easy. So with the mounting holes drilled, I put a bead of silicone down the back center of it before I screwed it in, and you can see this is one leveled and clamped in place, and I'm just gonna go back and put in those mounting screws, and they're just a short screw because that's only a 1/2-inch plywood side there. So there I have a piece of plywood cut that fits in there perfectly, and you can see it's gonna slide in and out, but it's only a 1/4-inch. Actually, it's about 6 millimeters thick. It's very flimsy when you're spanning 3 feet there. So what I'm doing is I'm adding some ribs onto it. And this is the first one on the front to provide a seal when it gets slid into the chamber there. So you can see I've got a piece clamped on the top to kind of pull it flat and have a nice flat piece when I'm done. And I'm just gonna glue on this strip of plywood on the back side here. Clamp it in place and glue it on, and that will give it a little bit of rigidity. Plus, if any hardware falls through the holes when I go to pull it out, this little edge up there will actually catch it and keep it from just falling down. So that's another reason for this whole chamber here. And while that's drying, I'll show you that I put a couple pieces of walnut trim in the sides on each side of this just to hide that different color piece of wood in there. And now it's time to just trim this panel to the exact length that I need. Using that little 20-volt saw. That works good for stuff like this. And you can see I use those Armor Tool clamps a lot. They work really good for clamping down things like this too. So I haven't really had any problems with them yet. So, I do like them. And then this slides right in there, you can see, and there's actually a drawer front going on it, but I pulled it out, and now you can see I'm adding the rest of the ribs on it to stiffen it. And while the glue's drying on that, I'm just going to go back and put the seal on the front that it seals up against when it slides in place, so you don't have a sealed vacuum chamber there. Alright, so that's in place. Now it's time to start putting the tongue and groove wainscoting on the front side there to create an area for a couple shelves and to be able to put 2 benches under. So this is that walnut tongue and groove I made probably a year or 2 ago, and I did make some extra of it. I was running a batch of it, and I figured someday I'll use it, and just happened to have the perfect amount to finish this area up, so that's what I'm using here. So I like to just put a bead of glue down to one side of it and then let the other side sort of float, and put some pin nails in each side. And I will say this little Porter cable pin nailer I've had no problems with yet. Put hundreds of pins in with it, not one misfire, so I'm happy with that. So I got that on, and now it's time to fill across the back. So I need a support on the top there to support the top of that tongue and groove. So I just cut another piece of walnut scrap I had laying around, and I'm gonna put a couple Craig screws in there. I had to notch it out to fit down around the extrusions there, and I'm just leaving an 1/8 of an inch gap between that and the slide out panel. But I put some Craig pocket holes on each side, and then it's just time to put the screws in there. And that'll give me a spot to at least mount the top of the tongue and groove to start. So back around to the other side, and you can see I can, now I can go back through and just get that top side there. I've got a board to keep everything level up there, and I'm just going to put some pin nails on that. I'm actually going to add some screws later. So there it is. I've got that whole area done in, and time to start sanding it down and do 2 coats of polyurethane on everything. And you have to sand it good between coats, because this is that water-based stuff that doesn't have it uses a mechanical bond, not a chemical bond. And then here's the shelves. I made 2 shelves to go in there. They were also ash, and put some pocket holes on each side. So I put like 4 pocket holes on each side, and I do have some boards on each side to hold it up into position to keep it level while I put the screws in. So you can see this gives me a nice spot to put some hardware and stuff like that, and also it gives me enough room for leg room to pull 2 benches in. And then once I've got that in, I'm going around to the back side, and I'm going back through each of those tongue and groove pieces, and actually putting a Craig screw right into the back of that shelf. And I'll do that on this is the middle shelf here, and then I'm going to add the bottom shelf there. Same thing, just clamp it in place and put the 4 Craig screws in each side. And then I'm going to go around the back and actually put the screws right through the walnuts. So everything is really tight together, so there'll be no vibration, no rattles or anything when it's all done. So pretty much I'm done with the bottom side of it now, and it's oh wait, I've got a couple strips I'm going to put in here to put a bottom in underneath where the drawers are going on the back side. So I just cut some more ash. I had some ash scrap and put that in there, and then went back and put a couple coats of polyurethane on everything to seal it up. Now comes the worst part, and this thing's probably between 400 and 500 pounds right now, I'm going to say, with the tops on and the frame. And one thing I didn't realize, I had a couple screws underneath it there that put some gouges in the top when I was sliding it there, but luckily they won't show up too bad. And then I figured, well, I'll just pull it to the edge of the table, let it down, and gently, and rock it over. And guess I didn't realize that the table it was on was gonna start popping up too. And luckily I could push it back enough to keep it from falling. But there you see that table kind of went up with it as it went over. So I did eventually get it down on the ground there, and then it was just a matter of moving it over into place. And I got it all leveled up. Those rubber feet on it are really nice. You can beat on the top of it with a hammer, and there's no vibration whatsoever. So another thing I've got to do is put a connector for the hose on there for the vacuum table. And there you can see, I was going to 3D print a part, but then I had this old floor sweep that turned out being the exact size for what I needed, and I just wound up cutting it down, putting some foam seals on it, and just drilling quite a few holes around the edge to allow me to screw it in place over that vacuum opening. So this is where my dust collector will hook up to, and I'll just have a hose hanging from the wall when I want to use it, and just plug it in there. So I got that screwed in place, and a little bit of silicone now to just seal the one edge I couldn't get an actual seal on. Now, where the vise is, I wanted a support on the other side of the bench for a longer board, so I just set that ruler in there, that yardstick level, and located a little board that I had that I drilled a 3/4 inch hole to give me a guide and keep me going straight. And then it's just a matter of drilling a hole for kind of like a bench dog, but it's actually a support. So using the guide, I got a nice square hole with no tear out or anything like that. And then a 3/4 inch dowel just goes in there. And I wound up modifying the dowel with a handle so I could grab onto it and turn it, because I do have a really tight fit so nothing moves. And there I can lock it right in place. Works good. And then there's just a board I had laying in the shop. I just piece it off the end of a slab there, and you can see I can just set it in a vise, and that'll hold the long board up, and I'll be able to work on that. So one more problem solved. I did make a new jaw for the front of the vise, you can see there, and I've got one of those Armor Tool stops, dogs to go on there. So this will give me a good, I can clamp something up to about 5 feet long in there. And I am going to pick up a couple more of those stops when I save up a little more. And then if I want to clamp around things, I'm going to, there's just a couple dowels I'm sticking in there now, but you can see I can use that vise to clamp around too, and I'm going to make some short dogs for it. Now, next thing I had to do is fill that hole in the bottom. So I'm just going to take and cut a piece of 1/4 inch plywood to go in there. Doesn't really have to, hold any weight or anything. It's just to keep spiders and stuff out of the drawers. So you can see that stuff is quite flexible, but once I get it glued in place, it'll be good. And my fence isn't long enough, so I did have to cut the short end off there, and you really don't like doing that, but sometimes you have to. I put a little glue around all those pieces that I had screwed in place before flipping it, and now I'm just going to set that down in the bottom, and about every 2.5 inches I'm just going to throw an 18 gauge narrow crown staple. Then it was my birthday the next day, and my wife let me go to Costco and pick out my meal for my birthday, and also stop at Home Depot and pick up a birthday gift there. So, and I got a couple of filet mignons and threw them on the grill there with some Vidalia onions and baked potatoes and squash. And that really did make a good meal. I did get them overcooked just a hair, but they were still really good. And then a chocolate mousse filled double chocolate fudge coated cake. That was good. And I started making some little stickers to put on it also. And I ordered these. This is the rest of my birthday present. I ordered these online because they didn't have them in the store. And a couple days later they came in, and these are just a squeeze type clamp. I had some Home Depot ones years ago, but they all broke and they weren't made well, and I figured I'll get some good ones that actually have a lifetime warranty on them, they say. So I think Bessie clamps are a good choice, and they do have a you can remove the end and use them as a spreader, but what I really wanted them for was like remove the end, and I'm gonna make adapters to make them work in the bench dog holes. So, they are very simple to flip around and stuff, but I'm going to really be using them for some of the bench dog clamps at least. And I'm working on trying to figure out some adapters now. And I got two different sizes. There's a little bit larger one and a smaller one. And then that old Craig clamp, Waddle Max. I decided to take that apart for parts, and that one piece there is scrap metal, but I'm gonna save these two jaws here and put them on my Harbor Freight clamp there and make that a good clamp. And those rubber grips I'm gonna put on the Harbor Freight clamp too. And how these things work is they've got two sliding things that lock, but for some reason you see it didn't get a lot of use, but it had an awful lot of wear in there, so I'm not sure if that was the problem with it or not. But anyhow, I really couldn't tell why it didn't work right. Then I started 3D printing some parts, and this is a holder for my squares. So I put a little neoprene pad on there too, so nothing will vibrate if you're beating on the bench. You shouldn't have any noise. And that just screws on this side. And this will hold I've got 4 framing squares. Actually, I've got 3 of them that are square, and then I've got one that's not quite square. I don't know why I keep it, but I do. So I'm just going to stick a couple of those Armor Tool pocket hole screws in there. I like the way the red ones look. They match the clamps. And there you can see I got my four squares. They fit right there. Very easy to grab and put back, so you know, always have them there. And this is kind of those other clamps. I'm gonna be making some mods to them to make them so I can actually use them for bench dog clamps in the end. And you know, that'll give me a 12-inch clamp for vertical things for clamping it together. And then also I'm making some horizontal adapters too, so I can use them for squeezing and spreading things. And you know, they are basically just a stainless steel heavy tubing that I'm working on now that will allow me to do that. And then for the new Revo clamps I got, printing some new adapters for those clamp holder racks that I have. And then I did 3D print some holders for my actual corner squares that I use all the time. I wanted them mounted on the bench, so I printed 2 of these, and they took about 13 hours each to print, I think, too. So that's how the corners are going to mount. And yeah, I've got another one started. So this Chiron printer has been running for like last 200 hours with all these little brackets and stuff. Doing a really great job now that I think I've got everything tuned in there. And these just brackets get mounted onto the side of the cabinet there. And like I said, I'm trying to keep everything that I'm going to use on the bench handy and have a place to put it back so I know if it's missing. And then the slides came from my drawers. Now, I got these on Amazon. I looked at them at Home Depot and they wanted like $24 a pair. I got 10 pairs of them on Amazon for $67, and I only needed 5 pairs now, but the other 5 are going to be used up in the kitchen in another project. And then the rest of my clamp order came. I had some gift cards from Home Depot too, so I ordered some more of these Revo clamps and a couple corner blocks. So, you know, now I definitely do have enough clamps. I don't have to worry anymore. Had to rearrange my clamp wall there. You can see I, did that video about all the brackets and 3D printing the original clamp holders and moved things around. And I got the first bracket for the Revo clamp there printed, and there's the 4 other new ones that just came. And I'm printing some more brackets to mount them in there right. Now, one of the things I like about these Bessie clamps are they got those plastic corner blocks, so you can set things up and just stack the clamps like that, and for doors and cabinets and stuff, and get everything squared up and then just tighten them. I've always wanted something like this, and I finally got a chance to get them, so I did. And now it's time to work on the panels to go inside for the slides. So I cut them, and while the polyurethane's drying on them, I figured I'd show you, when you 3D print a part, you print like supports and stuff for things that are overhanging and, going up on angles. So you do have to clean them off. They usually mostly pull off, but you have to take a like X-Acto knife and just do the final trimming when things are off. And there's the one for the smaller clamps, and I'm just going to replace it with this Revo clamp adapter that I've got now. And this will hold 4 of them on the correct spacing. So those 3D printed parts fit right down, lock down in the clamp bracket there, and the screw comes up from the bottom. And there is a whole video about, how I originally did this. And so there I can get the those 4 24-inch clamps here. Home Depot definitely had like the best price on these clamps. It was unbelievable compared to what other people are getting for them. But you do have to order them online because the stores are always sold out. Then it's time to start mounting the slides on the side. And I put 2 coats of polyurethane on those panels before I got to this point on this one side of them. And I'm just going to mount each of the slides. I made some spacers to get my, get them all perfectly aligned and my spacing correct and stuff. You can see just some strips of plywood, and I'm just putting 1/2 inch screw in each end of the slide. Now these are 100-pound capacity, and I figured could be some pretty good loads on them. So I'm just using these little screws here to locate them to the panel and just hold them in position while I assemble it. So I got them all there, and then I went back and I took a drill and I drilled through a clearance hole for a 1-inch long screw, and I'm going to put 5 more screws right through this panel into the other panel in the side of the bench. So these it'll actually allow me to mount the slides very, really strong, and also have a way to mount these panels in because the screws go in. So I put a little glue on the back of the panel before I started putting it in place and putting these other screws in, and now you can see I'm going right back through each of those 5 holes into the really getting a lot of screws in the slide there, because they are 24-inch slides, and there could be some heavy overhang on them. So there's the one side mounted, and put a little glue on the back of the other side, and same thing. This way the slides will be perfectly in line. And in the meantime, the 3D printer's running, making some more parts. And here it is, that first print. It's about 12 hours after that first shot there. And the part here actually took about 18 hours to make. I do have a little bit of noise in the printer now. It sounds like a fan starting to go, but this is to hold those Bessie clamp corners. And I got really lucky because they just perfectly fit in there. Any smaller and I would have been redoing it. So and that's how I'm going to mount them, so I can keep them handy where I can grab them quick, and I'll know where they are. So they fit in there, and I decided I'm going to mount that right there on the side by the clamps. And that's the way all my clamps will be within like 1 step of where I need them, and or it's just hanging on the side of the vise, like on the side of the bench like that. You can see those top clamps here. I did put some neoprene on top of those brackets there too to drop the clamps on, so there'll be no vibrations or noises or anything when I'm pounding on it. And I just had to go back through and put a bunch of screws in to hold this little bracket that I 3D printed in place. And there you can see they fit right in there, and they go right in and out. And I always know where they are. And then there's I've got 2 more angle adapters coming for the clamps that are going to mount right next to it. So pretty much you can see I pretty much got this side all done and ready to go. 1 more part to print down there. The back side here, I still have to make some wooden screw clamps and some vices and stuff to go on there, but that's coming in the future, and we'll be making the drawers in the next video. And this side here, I have to make 3D print some parts to mount these Bessie clamps and the bench dogs and the other stuff. And you see an old Incra extrusion. I put 2 bench dogs in it so I can use that for a locator. And I've got that nice couple shelves under there, and room for 2 benches, 1 for me and 1 for a grandson there, so we can work together. And I'm just about getting near done with it, so it's usable now. Got the vise, all new jaws made for it and stuff, and everything's ready to go. You can see that vise opens like a foot too. That's an amazing old vise, and I can use the dogs to hold things down. And just started bringing in some ash lumber to start working on the drawers for the next video here. So there's more grown in my backyard ash to finish this up with. So now I can actually say that I have just about enough clamps. All my racks are full, and I've got them all accessible and easy to find and stuff. So that's going to be really nice. And I just really like having all these dog holes in the bench and a nice flat top. And once I get the drawers in the back there for all my common use tools and stuff like that and get that all worked out, it'll be nice. And on this side, I still have a lot of, 3D printing and a bunch of stuff to mount, but that shouldn't take that long. So just another update, and hopefully the next one, it'll be finished up. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.